my name is Paula McGurdy and I am a visual artist based in Dublin in Ireland. And I started this podcast last year in lockdown. And really the idea was to champion other female artists within Ireland, just to hear more about their story. And I am fascinated by how people got into art, what their creative background is, a bit more about their process, all of that. I love it. I think it's really, really fascinating. And I think regardless of whether you're an artist or not, I think to find out a bit more about how people create things is a wonderful thing. So I hope you enjoy them. This series is on podcasts, so all of the main podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, all of those places. And it's also available on YouTube as well. So you can see them on my YouTube channel, Paula McGurdy. If you like it, please subscribe, please like, please share. Obviously, the way that these get out there and are seen more is if you guys champion them as well and champion the artists that are sharing as well. They give their time up as well to be here and to chat and share more about their process. And it's an amazing thing.
Hi, Paula.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can. How are you, Isobel?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay, Isobel?
I can.
Okay, perfect. Because I'm actually flying solo today. I've decided, I figured out how to do all of the necessary techie things. I figured out. Well, we'll see how this goes, Isobel.
You're managing great so far.
So far, so good. Anyway, if everything just goes black and there's, no noise or anything,
you'll know for me.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to call in my tech assistant, aka my husband. But hopefully all goes well. Anyway,
yeah.
But thank you so much for joining me today. It's lovely to meet you and see some of your beautiful works in behind you there as well.
Oh, thanks so much. It's lovely to meet you too.
Yeah,
I followed your work.
Oh,
that's gorgeous.
Isobel.
Yeah,
thank you. And likewise. So you're based in Dublin, is that right, Isobel? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm based in Dublin by the sea.
Okay, lovely. Yes, which you can tell from obviously your landscapes and stuff like that. So
yeah.
So let's dive right in. I guess the format is really just a very kind of relaxed conversation, I suppose. So I tend to start with the beginnings, like where did you begin, and finding out a bit more about your story. And so I'd love to know, how did you get into art? Was it always there? A bit about the beginnings.
Well, I suppose I was, like, my family was always very artistic. My mum and dad were really, like, my dad was an architect, but painted kind of in his spare time. My mum would have written, and they would have collected art. We would have always gone, like, when I was a kid, we would have always gone to art exhibitions, and, they were always kind of getting a new piece or, really excited about it. So, I suppose it was there in the background very much. But I never considered that it was for me. I always thought, no way, not a hope in hell. I'm not going into art. I'm going to do something. Like, I was, for example, really into cars when I was a kid. I used to collect them. I knew every car on the road. Mm-hmm. So then when I was in school, I was, good at languages, loved travel. So I thought, that's it. I want to work for Ferrari in Italy.
Why not?
Maybe Maserati. I'm not sure. I'd probably give my 80-year-old self a talking to, but
one of those.
Or Tesla,
Tesla, it'd be great. Oh, that's right up my son's avenue right now.
Yeah. So anyway, I started studying Italian commerce in UCD, and didn't really find that commerce was a good fit, because obviously my temperament wasn't kind of into the microeconomics of the thing. So I went to Italy for a year. I moved to Bologna, and there I was working for an Irish gift shop there. Sorry, that's very circuitous to get to my point.
That's great. I thought you were going to say you were working for Ferrari, and I was like, oh my goodness, I love it.
No, but wait till you hear. So I was working for an Irish gift shop in Bologna, and through that I was doing these fairs. So they'd have their mad about their fairs in Italy, and I was doing fairs in Modena and Milan, and kind of little backwaters in Tuscany. And there was one fair in Modena that it was one of my first ones, I think, and I just had the stand of like Irish gift wear, little iron jumpers and tweed hats and stuff, and mugs with shamrocks. But anyway, at the table in Modena, who rocks up to the table but the technical manager of Ferrari and his wife. He was Scottish.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. And we got on really, really well. It was pre-mobile phone, so I'm telling my age. But,
was it pre-email though, Isobel?
It was pre-email. Like, it was ridiculous. I had gotten my job in Bologna through going into the Italian Institute in Dublin and scouring through all the phone books to look for numbers and look for addresses and sent off loads of these ridiculous letters saying, I pretty much don't have a word in Italian, but give me a job. So anyway, I hit it off with the technical manager of Ferrari and his wife. And they said, and I had said, I always really wanted to work in Ferrari, blah, blah, blah. And they said, fantastic. We're throwing a barbecue this Sunday and we'd love you to come and all the team will be there. And I went, fantastic. That's amazing. How exciting. And I had my little diary and I wrote it in. He gave me his business card, I think, and maybe I wrote in, whatever details, and I was to get in contact, and I lost my diary.
Oh my goodness.
So that was my moment of, oh my God, what could it be? Sliding doors. But
it wasn't meant to be, Isobel.
It wasn't meant to be.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, and I love visiting Italy, but definitely, my heart is here. My heart is by the sea and in the cold. I'm much more a creature of the cold. So, I think it was destiny to lose my place in the Ferrari dynasty,
Yeah, but every time you see a Ferrari going by, you're like, what? I could have been designing cars or driving them, or
yeah, pretty much.
Wow!
That's the other
goodness.
So then I came back and went back to arts in UCD and focused on languages, and then after that, I was kind of thinking, what'll I do with my arts degree? And I was quite interested in architecture. My parents were over in Florence at that stage, and Dad was doing an art course over there. So, and we always got on so well. So I headed over there after kind of going traveling. And I was thinking of working on a portfolio for architecture. And so I went along to these open studios. You go into these kind of really old art schools and into these amazing open studios that are just these ancient spaces. And you could be any time in history, really, And so just drawing from scratch, like I had done art for the leaving and, always fine at it, but never got a buzz off it. Yeah. So this was just like this big adrenaline, like this drug that I couldn't get enough of then. And I was kind of going, oh my God, I never realized that, I love this so much.
Yeah, so, how life-giving it could be, I guess.
Like it gave me this because I was kind of, looking for a purpose. I knew I loved languages. I knew, various elements, but putting it together. And I think that's so hard for people in secondary school, kind of having to know what they want to do, for life, really. And
at 17 or 18, it's like,
it's so daunting.
Yeah.
So then I studied there for a while. I attended the Cecil School, which was amazing. Like you learned the sight size method, which is, I don't know if you know, have you come across the sight size method? So it's a lot of walking. It's a lot of walking. So you have your easel beside the subject, whether it's a sitter or a still life or a plaster cast, and you have your easel beside that, which is on a black backdrop. The light never changes. The light is always pristinely, exact. Yeah. And you have your tape there where you tape off your easel, and then you tape where you're going to stand a few meters back.
Okay.
And you're constantly toing and froing, making a mark, moving back, making a mark, moving back. And it's all like transferring the image. Your eye is flicking from one to the other. It's a really, really interesting method.
So precise, precision.
Very precise and no deviation, but excellent as a method. So then
and that was in Italy, Isobel, wasn't it?
That was in Italy,
yeah.
And that was my kind of first formal, tuition in drawing and painting. So then I got a place on not a portfolio course. It was a 2-year diploma course. Sorry, what am I saying? A 2-year portrait course, in London, and that was in Heatherley's in Chelsea, and that was just amazing. Coming from Florence and then moving to London and just having all these incredible artists. They were practicing artists who were coming in and tutoring, and then going back to their studio. They weren't kind of, I'd like to be painting, but I'm actually teaching.
Very inspiring, but aspirational, I guess. So they're modeling what could be possible for you as well, which is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that was brilliant. That was just getting to, just see the different styles and get the different inputs from the different tutors, and having all these fantastic models that you just go, oh my God, like it was just, it was incredible. You were spoiled for choice. So like Monday to Thursday, you'd be working on, whatever you were doing in studio as part of the course. And then Friday was a full day studio of just life drawing. And it's just brilliant. It was really, really good, really exciting. And, it was like, from my time in London, I was just completely focused on that. I kind of didn't come up for air at all and look at the broader. I don't feel like I was in London because I was just, so kind of tunnel visioned to learning and just immersed in what I was doing. It was like complete obsession,
Wow.
So then I came back to Ireland. Sorry, I'm keeping on talking.
No, I love this. This is fascinating. I love the story behind it. It's amazing. Yeah.
But I came back to Ireland, and just for the landscape that had surrounded and that I'd grown up around, I just saw it through new eyes and got such, a buzz off that. It was incredible to be able to try and express it on canvas, and I suppose like I was with galleries then, and I was just thrilled that people wanted my work, and they wanted my work in their homes. So that was just a lovely feeling,
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess your style though as well, it's quite recognizable as in terms of your landscapes. Did you come back and start working on that? Did that form over a certain period of time in terms of your current works? Or when you came back, was your work very different than what it is now?
Yeah, it's like, I suppose like anything, it's kind of like an evolution, you hone what you want and what you want to say. You kind of, bit by bit, you take bits out. A lot out, like, kind of, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the amount that I was leaving in, I would take out, a huge percentage of, and texturally and everything, you're just, I suppose it's as you, get to really kind of mature your style and, push your ability to, recognize that you can control what you're doing on canvas. So that's something that really kind of is interesting, that I'm kind of finding. Maybe I'm coming late to it, but it's like you have control over everything that you do. And in the past, sometimes I would have felt like, things were happening beyond my control. Even with my work, that it would just, would happen, and it would, it was interesting in that, but just to have that to kind of pull back and control and stop, and I think that's kind of changed. So to really hone what I want to kind of to simplify, I suppose, what what I'm putting down has kind of happened over time.
And it's oils that you work in, Isobel, is that right?
Yes, yeah. Oils mostly. Like I do some portraiture as well, and that would be usually for like my big. I don't know if you can see.
I saw the one that you did of your. No, show it to us. I saw that's your daughter, isn't it? Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's opposite, isn't it, on the camera? I love that, Isobel. That is just such a beautiful drawing. Anytime I see it, I'm just, I love it. It's the style of how you use it. Is it pencil that you've used? Or?
It's pencil.
Pencil.
And yeah, like I've done a good few commissions with, people contacting me just wanting, pieces like that of their children. And that's been wonderful to work on. It's such a faith and a trust to have for, someone to draw your child who, you're so kind of immersed in their faces and how you see them and how you know them, like anyone you know. Yeah. So that's been a big privilege and really lovely. Like I just love the kind of the amplified size and the exaggerated size.
Yeah.
And then the simplicity of the pencil. I think it really
it's gorgeous. Yeah.
It kind of works as a contrast.
Yeah, it's stunning. I love it. Yeah. And the oils then, when did you get into painting with oils? Was that through college, or was that more through when you came home and started testing things out? And
it was during college in London that I would have been, kind of really introduced. Well, I started a bit in Florence. Like it was mostly I was working in charcoal in Florence. But then by the time when I came to London, it was kind of plunge into oils, and I was painting then when I wasn't in college. I was in my little room and I had like a massive easel, massive canvases, because I always loved working big. So like the fumes, I probably, did some damage.
Yeah. So strong, isn't it?
Yeah. It's so strong. And like even tidying up your process over the years, tidying up, because right now, like where I'd love a showroom and I'd love, like I used to have a studio, but now it's just in our circumstances, we have like a small house, and there's a small garden on each side, so there's no possibility of a showroom or anything. So I'm working like in our home, in our open plan space. So that's really just trying to kind of whittle down what I use, whittle down my palette, my, everything is quite precise, it needs to kind of fit compactly.
Space, and space really dictates efficiently, what you create and how you work, doesn't it? It has an enormous effect on what you create, I think, So working in your house, then how does your day to day go? I've got a small room, so this is in our home as well. Okay. But it's my own room. It's teeny tiny, but it is. Yeah, it's my own space, and I can close the door, Isobel, which is a joy.
Being so smug.
You get your room, you get your showroom one of these days, or big studio. Wait till you see. So how do you work? Like talk us through, I guess, a bit more about your process of your day to day. How does that work in terms of, obviously you've got a family and all of that. How do you work around that?
So what I'd be doing is it's a mad scramble to get the kids to school every morning, and then then I go for my swim, and that is almost like a start of the process, a start of my day, my time. Like say, we have 3 kids, and I was home with the kids. Like, I was so lucky to be able to be at home with them, you know, until our eldest was around 8. You know, we didn't have to kind of, you know, get childminders or get, you know, no pair or anything like that. And I suppose since our youngest went to Montessori, it's been a journey of getting back to me and getting back to myself, getting back to my swims, getting back to the ritual of creating work and having that continuity, not just dipping in and out for, like, you know, a commission that might come in, or, you know, when you kind of really have this drive, this need, like, as, you know, a creative person, that you'll always be painting. But if it's your work and your career, you're bloody making time for it, you know, and you're treating it like, you know, a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 2 or a 9 to whatever, you know, but it's definitely, so getting back to swimming was a major part of getting back to me, getting back to my work. And then I go for my swim, I get back to the studio, or get back home, I call it the studio.
Call it the studio,
and more.
Yeah. Own it.
yeah, totally right. So then I would work, like, I'd work solidly. I'd kind of do, I'd work solidly usually from, you know, 10 until 2, and then it's time to collect the kids. So I kind of, like, I do a bit of, I kind of find the peripheral sort of, you know, social media stuff, and just catching up with, like, say, commission inquiries and that, you know, you have to make a bit of time for that too. So kind of over the week, my mornings are completely dedicated to that, you know, mostly painting, and then a bit of the, you know, sending emails and admin.
Yeah, all of those other necessary things as well, you know.
Yeah.
And just, I guess I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here now, Isobel, but you talked about 3 kids and getting back to your process. In terms of, I follow Carve Out Time for Art. I don't know if you know Marissa Huber.
No.
So on Instagram, and herself and, oh gosh, I can't remember the other lady's name. It'll come to me. They wrote a book, and it's called The Motherhood of Art, and it's all about artists who are also mothers and how they carve out that time for themselves. How did you find, kind of in terms of having younger kids, because this is something I get asked a bit myself, like in terms of the balance between having children but also having an art practice and keeping on top of that. Was that something that you were able to do when the kiddies were a little bit smaller, or did you really decide that that wasn't going to be a part of things, or did that kind of fall away for the time, or did you try and keep on top of process whilst you had small children? It's going back, I know, but maybe, I guess, you know,
but from the get-go, like, getting pregnant the first time kind of, you know, sort of was a little bit out of the blue, and I just stopped painting. I just couldn't. Whatever it was like, I was quite morning sick, but, you know, I just felt like that part of my brain was kind of, you know, it almost seemed irrelevant in a weird way. You know, kind of that sort of, you know, being immersed in creativity, because I work very intensively when I am painting or, you know, drawing. So I suppose it takes so much energy, you know. But then towards the end of when I was pregnant with my first Matilda, she's 10 now, I got the opportunity of taking a studio in the RHA. And for that, I was like, it was kind of towards the end of the pregnancy. It was really hot summer. And I was just really conscious of, you know, the fumes and, you know, whatever, because I was kind of, you know, just conscious for the first time in my life of, you know, doing damage when it wasn't just me. So I was working in pastels for that, and that was lovely. I worked on a very different set of work while I was there, in pastels, really, really highly coloured, based on kind of some nude drawings I had done, some life drawings. And I really enjoyed working on those, actually. And then after having her, I was kind of, like I'd get the odd commission. And then there was an opportunity that came with the Percent for Art scheme when she was around 2. And I actually got commissioned to do this. Like, I put in this proposal for St. Luke's Hospital at James's in Dublin for the oncology. And they have this, they had like this state-of-the-art building. And of course, they have a percentage when they do a new building, they have a percentage that needs to go to artwork in the building. And you walked into this huge foyer that spanned 3 floors, and there was a glass ceiling on it, and there was a massive wall. And I was like, oh yeah, totally need something big. It was
huge,
massive. So I put in this proposal thinking they'll never go for it. And anyway, like, how could I with, a 2-year-old? And anyway, they did go for it. And it was 6 panels of, I think each panel was 1.5 by 1 meter. So it was like, it was around, what was it? All together, all the panels put together were around 3 meters by 4.5 meters, I think. So it was quite sizable. And an amazing opportunity, and I loved every second of it. But it was out of my comfort zone, But once I was in it, I was like, I was grand. So I suppose things like that took me by surprise, getting that. And then I was very much about, like, I put my creativity into being with the kids in other ways. Like, I would have been, sort of pouring it into, baking or throwing little parties for them, or doing whatever else would get the creativity out of you, or making costumes or doing all that. And now I find I'm kind of totally stepped back from that, getting very lazy and normal.
It's my time now.
It's my time. No more baking. No more baking, baby. No
more parties, children. I'm sorry.
No more parties. No. Go make your own entertainment.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of there too, Isobel. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Wow. Yeah. It can have, I think the motherhood thing with an artist, I always say both of them are full time. Like, in terms of, as an artist, your head is I'm always thinking about my work, or what something else that I see that in some way relates, or reflecting on something, or researching something. But it's the same with motherhood as well. It's like, it's 24 hours as well, and the two just kind of collide, and sometimes they work well, and sometimes not so well. It was sorry, go on, Isobel. Yeah.
No, it was like, because my husband is an animator as well.
Okay.
And like, he kind of does lots of different things. Like, he'd do puppet building, and he'd do, and there was always a little bit of, if he'd say, I just really want to get to do my own thing, and I would, try to do the sympathetic face that wasn't. It was
good for you.
yeah, really. But this summer, it was, I wasn't painting that much because the kids were home from school, but also he had this great idea for a TV program, for a kids' TV program. And I think I can say it now, but he went to RTE, and they really went for it. So we set about, he kind of had to put a team together quickly this year, and our 3 kids were in it, in the TV program.
Fantastic.
3 kids and 2 puppets. And it'll be called, it's the Imagination Machine. So that was I actually ended up working as like production designer on that. So I was doing the set design and the wardrobe for it. So that was like
amazing,
just fantastic, because even like your palette, you know, your kind of just your aesthetic, you know, I'm putting it into something similar but different, you know. It's just it's so broad.
How amazingly creative. And also, like, your kids obviously are growing up in an extremely creative family, and for them to be part of that then as well, that's just wonderful, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, it's just that, you kind of like the night before its filming was starting, I kind of had this like sudden, oh my God, are we damaging our children, you know? Oh, what are we doing? But it was really like, we just really wanted to keep it all very familiar and very close to home. And even like their school, which is up the road, the principal there was fantastic with, he rented out a couple of rooms, and they were able to build a green screen there. Because there's like part with the story, there's part in the real world in a playroom that I was responsible for setting up. And then they go into this cardboard box. That's the imagination machine. And then that brings them off into this cardboard world of whatever they want to find out about. So like the Vikings, the moon, deep sea, you know, various things. So it was lovely, but it's just like, it's that kind of, you know, friction between two people being creative and, you know, in family life, you know, and trying to find the balance, like of who gets the time, and who is, you know, gets the priority. So like now we're finding much more of an even keel with, you know, prioritizing work. And, you know, if I have a show coming up, or if I have something coming up, or if he has something coming up, like at the moment he's all systems go, so you know, he's getting the preferential treatment.
I guess it's ebb and flow, isn't it, Isobel? It's like ebb and flow, but it's compromise as well, isn't it? You know,
absolutely.
I completely get that. You know.
So
talk us through a bit about your work. How would you, more on the, I guess, the practical side of things? I don't know. First of all, how would you describe your work? For those who don't know your work, we're kind of going a little bit backwards, but it doesn't matter.
On too much.
No, this is so interesting. This is exactly why people love these conversations as well. You know, it's interesting. But tell us a bit about your work. How would you describe it?
I always find it really hard to describe my work. I think I would be probably, I can describe how I go about it, but actually to see it as someone else, I find that, you know, hard.
Well, if you prefer to tell us how you go about it, that is just fine. If that's easier for you, we can do that.
I'd be very, like when I'm working, it's very physical and it's very concentrated. It's like I wouldn't have a few works on the go. I'd be focused. It's like a monogamous relationship for, you know, an intense kind of amount of time. And then it's, you know, I usually don't revisit a work. I don't sit for months, you know, kind of going over it. It's about a moment in time and kind of putting across that just the energy, trying to capture it and trying to kind of keep it elevated, or keep it, I don't know if this sounds really bullshitty, but it's just trying to, I often think, like, you know, especially for these pieces where one stroke leads to another stroke and answers and demands something, you know, that it's kind of like a conversation between all the different parts, and keeping that
energy
floating. keeping it because you can just make it all sink and make it all flat and make it all just go if you're not focused. Or if I'm not focused. That's how I kind of how I work on these, that it's like it's almost like, a kind of a meditation that you're fully in it, and it's all each line and each piece of color is kind of corresponding to another somewhere else on the surface. I know it's a bit of a strange explanation. I find it.
No, I find the way that you said, well, yes, like the conversation, I think art is very much like that. When you're making anything in terms of a composition, I think it is a to and fro, a back and forth. So I completely, that lands so well with me. But I love also what you said about, so I work on many paintings at different times, and I love that you said you're so focused that it's like a monogamous relationship, that you're just, it's you and me, we're here, this is it, and you're just giving it all your attention. I think that's amazing, because I can't do that. Not in my relationships, obviously. I'm talking about paintings here. My husband will be like, what's she talking about?
Your secret is out now.
Maybe this won't be published. But it's that I love the way that you describe that, because I guess I know quite a few artists who would work on multiple paintings at the same time, or various artworks that they're kind of toing and froing and backward and forward. But I love the fact that you're saying, I just give my energy to this one thing, and that's where my sole focus goes, because just that's where you know that you have to be at that time, as opposed to being drawn over here and over there, and then your energy is pulled in various different ways. So really,
I suppose it's a bit like a stream of consciousness in a way, and it's just it's a special time for me. It's really special getting back to painting and getting that time, getting back to that private, personal, inner time and inner space, mentally, and physically, like not being touched, not being asked how to spell things, not being asked, a million different questions, that's so wonderful, having kids in your life. That's a wonderful part of it, but also it's nice to step back and get your own, your own kind of headspace again. So I suppose it's allowing that to come out and allowing that to kind of, to give that space and to celebrate it in a way. Like I'd say, for my work as well, the sea, like for my landscape work, I often get this feeling, like I particularly like swimming in the winter, in the cold, and I need that feeling of, vulnerability, or just that kind of, I can't think of the word, but that, just that solitary simplicity, that it's just you and it being, everything that's important, and anything, mentally, anything that's coming in on you from your life, that you just shed it and you leave it behind with your little pile of clothes on the shore. And when you come back to that little pile of clothes, it's not as big, and it's intensely kind of purifying, and it helps me be a nicer person, I'm sure. But it also, I think that's kind of something that informs my work as well, just that like I sometimes feel like I'm lost in like I want to get lost in the painting, or want to be surrounded by that sea and sky and feel that uncertainty or that vulnerability or that, that immersion. So,
which is the same as swimming as well, I guess, isn't it? The whole idea of immersiveness into the water, and this, particularly with cold water, it's just makes you feel so alive, doesn't it? It just it lights everything up, or highlights everything, I guess,
it sort of shocks your body into like, just with say for anyone who is grieving, or anyone going through difficult times, it's immense, the power of it, and then to be able to, I suppose it's like, for me, it's kind of trying to express it then, express that feeling, or express that, that really informs it, what I come back to the studio with, back home with.
Of course, yeah. Have you always done a kind of sea swimming, or since you moved back, has that been something that
I did for before let's see now, when I was in my kind of early 20s, I used to go down with my dad every day down to the 40 foot. He was always a great swimmer. And then since our youngest started in Montessori, then I started back at it. And it's it's like coming home, it's like like, it's funny, there are friends of mine who they teach the Wim Hof method. I don't know if you've heard about Wim Hof. Amazing. Such man. But I go to my friend's house to do an ice bath sometimes, and it's a treat. It's a treat. Like, it's sitting into that is like relief. I don't understand why I'm, just wired that way. I know it's weird, but I'm going with
it. I guess your body has become accustomed to, if you're swimming in the sea every day, and the Irish Sea is bloody cold, isn't it? So if you're swimming in the sea, and so your body is already you've regulated your body to be accustomed to, I mean, an ice bath is, I guess, next level, but maybe you've acclimatized. Is that the word I'm looking for? Acclimatized, maybe, and I mean, it's so good. My husband's into Wim Hof, and he's such a character, isn't he?
Oh, unbelievable.
He's kind of a crazy Dutchman, isn't he? But I think there's a lot of truth in in so much of what he says about it's good for our immune system and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know the science behind it, but anyway, I'm intrigued by him. I haven't done an ice bath though. Maybe one of these days. Yeah. I have done sea swimming. Actually, we were going to go today, but I have my ups and downs with that. Sometimes it's the fear factor. That's what I think it is. It's the fear of, not necessarily, it's the fear of the cold. It's not necessarily the water, but it's the fear of the cold. It's like when it takes your breath away, it's like, that's what I mean, like, about how it makes you feel so alive when you're immersed in it. You just know it's just you. It's you and the elements. That's it, and surrender. Everything else falls away. It's just surrender. That's exactly it. Yeah. Okay, you've inspired me, Isobel.
Go for it, Paula.
I'll be sending you messages now. You'll never know where I am, Isobel.
Come on. Exactly. Meet you there in 20.
Okay, I'm gone. Oh yeah. I'd love to be able to bring the kids along, but they're not. My son in particular is not interested. My daughter, though, over the summertime we went. And she's probably a lot braver than I am, but we'll get back to it. One of the other things I was going to talk to you about, Isobel, it's a complete gear shift, but what I'd love to, I guess, sort of debunk that idea of the starving artist, which is just that story that goes through art college or whatever it is, family saying it to you, society, that whole thing of you can never make a living from your art, because even Elizabeth Gilbert, do you know Elizabeth Gilbert? She's written a few books, Big Magic and stuff. She even wrote about it and saying how you shouldn't ask your art, be it visual art or writing or whatever it is, that you shouldn't ask it to pay the way for you, which I actually disagree with. I think if you're given something like, not that we're given this gift, but if you have something that you love and you're passionate about and you want to put it out into the world and you're making and creating something, I don't see why you cannot make a living from it. So I guess that whole side of things, with debunking the starving artist into saying, actually, you can be a thriving artist and have it as a business. And I think for so long there's that thing in the art world of, many people don't like to talk about money or don't like to talk about the business side of things, because it seems like it takes away in some way from it being this romantic practice that you're doing. But I really believe that as an artist, if you're selling your works and people are coming to you and buying them, it is a business. You know, there is a business side to it. This is a big long way for me to get to the point. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of a rant at the same time, I guess. But I'm wondering, like, in terms of the business side of things, where, like, have you done anything to help you on that side? Because I know for me it wasn't something that was taught in art college at all. It wasn't even talked about. It wasn't even like, oh, you need to, it was just like, you can approach galleries, but you need to get a CV together before you can do that. So you already have to have some kind of exhibitions before you can go down that route. But fundamentally, that was their only way of saying that you could make money. And I'm wondering, how do you go about your day-to-day in terms of people approach you for commissions, but how do you work around the systems that you've put in place for it to be a viable art business for you? I should probably just cut out, like, I need to edit about 5 minutes of what I've just said. You can tell I'm passionate about this, Isobel.
Yeah, I have really, I really enjoy the kind of business side of it as well. And I think you can be really creative with that and have a lot of fun with it. And instead of, the old-fashioned model of just purely going through not so much the old-fashioned model. It works for people, and it's, it's a fantastic thing of, going solely through the gallery. You never have contact with your buyers or the people who like your work. You only ever get feedback in terms of sales, monetary sales, or monetary feedback, really, from the gallery, or for going through the gallery. I think it's lovely to kind of be able to connect with people who are looking at your work, not even buying it, just looking at it, having, kind of seeing people's reactions to it. So, say, doing things like pop-up studios, doing things like, plein air painting, or getting online and promoting your work, or just putting, pieces of your work, even archived pieces of your work, if you don't have that much current work, putting those online and starting conversation, just being a little bit creative and thinking laterally about who might look at my work, who might look at my work, or trying to kind of explore the avenues. Like, social media is just incredible. I remember a few years ago, my dad had broken his hip, and he was he was convalescing in hospital, and he'd had he's a great storyteller, and he loved chatting to the nurses, and one of them was really into architecture, and she was really knowledgeable about it. And he was just fascinated that she was so knowledgeable from her research online, really. And he was going, like, it's just amazing. It's this amazing tool that you all have at your fingertips now, that they had like back, you know, in the 50s or whenever, when he would have been in his 20s, you know, they would have had like, say, you know, a couple of issues of Time magazine coming to Limerick. And that was, you know, it was like just the broader world, and the, you know, or say like interesting architecture. He would always, you know, because he was studying and obsessed with architecture. So, you know, like, how did, you know, that information was so so hard to come by, really, or harder to come by than it is now. And we can just do so much and connect with so many people online. So it's kind of, it's really inspiring, and it's really lovely to kind of think laterally and, you know, think, how could I kind of introduce more people to my work, or how could I get out and even take myself out of my comfort zone by painting in front of people. Or like last Christmas, there was a friend who had a space in Dunleary, and it was kind of in between tenants. So she very kindly, or they very kindly, kind of offered me to put work in the window. And that was like an amazing success.
Brilliant.
It was just, you know, it was this prime gallery window. It hadn't been a gallery, and it isn't since, but, you know, it was like this prime gallery window, you know, in Dunleary, which was getting a lot of footfall, and a lot of people in lockdown as well, stuck at home and needing, you know, wanting to make their homes, you know, as kind of, you know, as rounded as possible and as welcoming as possible, and whatever, you know, and giving them enough while they were stuck there. So that was just an amazing experience to meet so many people, because like after setting up the window, just a gallery window, in the weeks leading up to Christmas, I started using it as a studio, and then people would pop in and see the work. I had work hanging in the space. And it was just amazing. Like, people were, you know, it was a great experience, you know, lovely to meet people, and just a really nice a nice way of connecting with, and you know, hearing people's views on your work or your style, or, you know, where I find it hard to express, sometimes other people are much better at expressing you know, what their interpretation of your work, you know, or your style, or that sort of thing.
Style, yeah. I think you're right, there's never been a better time, like, to be a creator with social media and so much knowledge at our fingertips. Like, Google is just, you can learn anything, can't you?
Yeah.
And you know, you saying about your dad, and you know, they had like 3 copies maybe of Time magazine, you know. I just, you know, those days of just the encyclopedia or whatever being your knowledge base, it's just gone so far beyond that. And I think as creatives, you can learn how to do anything, and you can learn how to put yourself forward in so many creative ways, like from be it a pop-up and a studio in a retail space. I mean, I think you're right. You can be so creative about the avenues that you go down and how to put your work out there. And and
not to see it as a chore, you know. It's not a chore. It's just it's kind of part of it. It's more, it's like the spilling, the ever like expansive, you know, just creativity. It doesn't start at painting or stop at painting, or, you know, it comes out in all different ways, and we're all creative, you know. So it's kind
all
of
creative, absolutely. So what do you think is the most challenging part then about being an artist or a creative? What would you say?
Well, I'm always saying, like, my kids, the 3 of them are really creative, and I'm always saying, and I don't know if it's the right thing to say, you know, and if they, I'm always saying, well, if you do something practical now, do something practical, do a practical degree, and then you can do your other, you know. So I find myself with that mantra, because I suppose I'm just sometimes, especially if you're as a woman, I found, kind of being at home with the kids, sometimes I just really envied my friends who, had to go back to work, had to not just drum up this, find the energy somewhere to drum up this like machine of, yes, kind of, your own brand and your own thing, that they had someone saying, okay, now's your time. This is your date on the calendar physically, that everyone in the office or corporation or whatever can see. And that's the date that you need to go back to work. And just to have that, feeling of purpose set by someone else in a way. And as an artist, no one is really doing that. It's coming from yourself, because like you get, if you've been with galleries and then you take time out to be home with the kids, you have to just like climb up again. And, if you take a chunk of time out, you have to kind of, you have your practice there and you can do it, but you just have to remind people that you exist. So it's kind of, for that, I suppose I would say that was hard, but coming back to it is just brilliant, and it's just like home, and I wouldn't be going into an office. Like, I find that really hard. And I was really lucky as well to, be able to be home with the kids. I suppose, like, as well, as a creative, and like my husband being creative too, that you can have these patches that it's either feast or famine. You're kind of going, holy moly, this is a great month. And then, the next month is just not quite playing ball. So, it's, I suppose it's the thing of being self-employed as well, and the practical life things of, looking for a mortgage or looking for, that like, you put down like artist, even on insurance, you put down artist as a job description, and I'm sure that negatively impact on your quote and your premium.
I'm sure, I'm sure his eyes rolling all over the place, those flaky people, yes.
I couldn't keep my eye on the road. I'm looking at the trees.
There's a lot of self-motivation is needed, and determination, I guess, isn't there, in terms of it as a career, as a career option that you go for. So, and also, I mean, that also reminds my dad. My dad was always like, you need to get yourself a trade. Like, a trade is a good thing. You'll always have work if you do a trade. But needless to say, I didn't go into like carpentry or plumbing or something like that. But no. But it will always. I can understand why you're saying that to your children. It's like that's something of, get yourself a foundation of a career. Go to college, do something that you have an interest in, get a decent job, and then later on in life you go off and live it whatever way. But it's not straightforward, I guess, that the artist's career in terms of it as a there's no safety net, I guess. Sure, there's not. There's no safety net in terms of it. There's no monthly. You're a regular. That you're employed by somebody. You get a monthly income. You have your pension. All of that kind of. It's not like that, But I think it's also. That's maybe the negative side of things, but I think also then the joy of doing something that you love, and it balances it out.
Absolutely.
That's what I think.
Absolutely.
So I get very emotional about it as well. It's just one of those things that is just, if you
and that you couldn't, you wouldn't
amazing.
Be whole.
Yeah,
you wouldn't be yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things.
Yeah.
So tell us, Isobel, what's next for you? Do you have anything in the pipelines that you're working on? Anything exciting coming your way?
Well, I'm really like the thing that I spoke about earlier, the imagination machine. Like that's the next one. Kind of I really that's due to be aired before Christmas, so it's 11 episodes of 8 minutes long. So just like already I'm kind of, you know, just thinking about you know, the possibilities of that aspect of things as well, you know, to kind of like have a little bit of you know, they're talking about probably a second series too, so you know, just having that kind of aspect of things as well as like a sideline to what I do anyway. And in the meantime with my work, I'm, you know, painting, I'm, you know, back to, because like my kind of role was involved in the lead up and during filming. I was on hand then, so then for the edits I'm kind of, you know, eased off and able to get back to my own work.
Wow.
Yeah. So
well, Isobel, I wish you all the best with whatever happens with the TV show and with the pop-up, and your work is beautiful and it's been so lovely chatting to you. Can you just tell us, where can people find you? So obviously
so through my website, like my Instagram or my website. My website is isobelhenihan.com, and then my Instagram is at Isobel Henihan Art.
Okay. Brilliant.
That's where I am.
Fantastic. Well, I will let I'll put the links below. That's the word I was looking for. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a visual. I could see it in my head. I just couldn't get the words out.
Words are just problematic sometimes.
The words are problematic sometimes, definitely. So that's why I appreciate artists and you coming on, Isobel, to be able to put things into words, because I think it's also lovely for people to understand your work and see it in a different way as well, or understand a bit more about it. So Isobel, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm off to go and have my swim now.
Oh, brilliant! Excellent.
We'll
thanks
see.
so much, Paula. It was lovely chatting with you.
Yeah, you too, Isobel, and we'll keep in touch.
Great. Take care.
Okay,
Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
There we go. Thank you. That was Isobel Henihan, and what a lovely conversation. I hope you like this, and if you do, I would love for you to share. I would love for you to subscribe and like as well, because the reason why I ask you these things is because it actually extends the reach for other people to be able to listen to these conversations and see these chats. So I would appreciate that so much. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a lovely day. Take care.